Hi, everyone. Hey. All right. Enjoying the event, everyone? Yeah? Today, I'll be sharing a session on transforming games into blockchain games. But before we start, I would like to give a small rundown, a short rundown on what company I'm from, what I'm doing, and why I'm presenting today. So I'm the business head for Business Creative Center at WEMADE. WEMADE is a South Korean game development company. We have more than 20 years of industry experience. We're a listed company in Korea with over, I believe, 1,700 employees at the moment. So we're not a small firm. So we've been in the industry for a long time. We were in the space and developing games throughout the years, as well as publishing new games. And ever since year 2018, we've been in the blockchain industry as well. So today, we have launched, middle of last year, a platform designated for blockchain gaming. And we started off the project, it's called Wemix, and we started off the project with a single game back then, and now it has grown to a massive scale. I'll be sharing some KPIs with you. But yeah, that's what we're doing. And today, I wanted to share our experience and insight on what we have learned through our services and how we plan to impact the current industry in gaming using blockchain technology. So Wemix Play is a global blockchain platform currently being servicing various games. On the platform, we have 23 games being serviced at the moment. We have 29 others being prepared for launch. And all of these games are blockchain games, but they initially started off as traditional Web2 games. So these aren't newly developed games utilizing blockchain technology, but rather implementing blockchain technology in forms of different services and providing added value proposition for the gamers. Some important KPIs I would like to share with you on the platform. We have close to about 30 million registered users on the platform, and that is accounting for all 23 games at the moment. Average concurrent user base surpasses 500,000, which is pretty decent, I would say. And wallet downloads, this is the Web3 component. This is the blockchain component of it. And you can see from the numbers, the total number of gamers available or active on our platform versus the ratio in which you can see as in terms of 9 million wallet downloads, that kind of shows you the ratio between traditional gaming versus blockchain gaming. So that's about 30%. If we look at the current industry traction and developments in terms of transition of traditional gaming into blockchain gaming, we can see that the market also shares the same ratio. So I believe last year we've seen about close to about 9%, close to 10% of the total gamers were involved in blockchain gaming, whereas now this year we're seeing a massive growth, very close to 30% of the total gaming population being involved in blockchain gaming. So considering that growth, we're expecting the future to be bright in blockchain gaming, but we talk about blockchain, we talk about technology, and we don't really understand it too well, do we? So that's the core issue I would like to discuss and share with you today, because new technology doesn't really have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be difficult to understand. It can be easy, and that's where we come in as Wemix Play. We want to make it easy for developers, easy for gamers to understand and apply this newfound technology in their lives. So as a blockchain gaming platform, obviously there are tokens available on the platform, and these are some of the key metrics that we would like to share. There are 26 game tokens available, and the total token trade volume amounts to approximately 500 million. I believe it's close to 500 million now, which is whopping. And the total value locked, which represents the total asset valuation on the platform, amounts to close to $80 million. And the average transaction per month amounts to approximately 5 million transactions. Now, transactions, this is, I guess, a bit more on the blockchain side of the terminology. Transaction stands for any sort of action taking place on the platform between two parties. So if there are two gamers that exchange tokens or exchange assets on the platform, it accounts for one transaction. And 5 million transactions per month is quite high. Now, let's start with blockchain. If we talk about blockchain, all of these terminologies will be mentioned somewhere, somehow, by some person. Whereas I can guarantee you, each and every one of you, if I were to ask you one-to-one what you think of blockchain technology or how you identify blockchain technology, I can guarantee you it will all be different. And this is the current situation in the market. So we're having a difficult time understanding and agreeing upon what blockchain technology means, first and foremost, and more so in the gaming sphere. So once we bring this new technology into the gaming industry, what does it really mean? So to identify blockchain games, we've organized 4 different components that represents the blockchain side of things and the core aspect, the foundation of how blockchain games are created. So first and foremost, I would have to say, games need to be fun. They need to be entertaining. And this has nothing to do with the additions or any sort of value propositions gained through this new technology. So games must be fun, and that's where you guys come in. Developers create amazing games, and those games are becoming more and more very part of our lives. Now, understanding that component, games being fun, now assuming that there's a fun game available, on Wemix Play, that game can easily become a blockchain game by incorporating the 4 components. The values that I've written down on this slide share generation of value. So you're basically allowing gamers to generate value in the form of assets through gameplay. And I'll explain more about this in the next slide, but also incorporating the utility of those assets. So not just saying, hey, you can play the games, you can earn through the game, and do what you like. No, rather, we help expand that experience cycle for the users and the gamers so that they can actually become more involved in the ecosystem. So that's the second component. The third component is true asset ownership through what we define as NFTs. And NFTs, you know, everyone's heard of NFTs, but I'll explain more about how we determine NFTs and the characteristics of it. And fourth and last is community. So community has been the center and one of the most important aspects of the gaming industry ever since the industry began. We've seen, especially in Asia Pacific, we've seen different services in the forms of portals that we call like gaming portals. And these gaming portals always try to utilize the number of gamers that they can bring together as a community. And unfortunately, they have always failed to utilize that gaming pool or gamer pool to introduce to them new games that are serviced through their portal. And I'll explain further in the further slides. Now, we've talked about what the blockchain game is, or how we define blockchain games, but why do we need blockchain games? Blockchain games are a way of allowing time, effort, and money spent by the gamers to become an actual value. So the value proposition, there are a lot of value proposition that comes through with implementation of blockchain technology. But I think the core aspect of it is allowing users to invest their time, their effort, and money spent in gaming. And this allows gamers to have a different perspective in playing games. It's no longer just a side hobby outside of work and outside of your involvement with life. Life itself becomes a game because now you're actually creating real-world value through gameplay in different forms. So going back to the initial slide, just a couple slides back, I've talked about the values that we've added and explained about the values through the 4 components. But to categorize these 4 components, we have created 4 distinctive terminologies on our platform. And these are modules available for game developers to apply to their traditional games. And through onboarding Wemix Play, these 4 components can work towards your advantage as a developer to offer the value proposition through blockchain technology. So first is Tokenomics. This is where the asset gets created, and I'll explain more about that. The second is GameFi. GameFi is a terminology widely used currently in the market. GameFi has to do with including the financial solution and decentralized financial solution within the gaming space. And I'll explain how we incorporated that onto the platform. Third is Marketplace. Marketplace allows the expansion of tradability of assets, and it increases the accessibility for gamers in the overall ecosystem throughout the intergame economy. So I'm using a variety of different terminologies here, but it basically means it allows users to trade with each other the values that they have created through the game in various ways. Fourth component is community. Community, as I mentioned, is, I think, one of the most pivotal components that we need to work on. And keep in mind that community is something that I would like to emphasize through this session. It is the last topic, but stay tuned, and I will share with you how we built the future of community on Wemix Play. Starting with the first component, tokenomics. So there are various types of tokenomics available, but we've categorized it into 5 distinctive types, and I'll explain them. First tokenomics is, we call it exchange tokenomics. So this is the bread and butter of tokenomics. So if games have generic resources available and economics available within the game, those pivotal or vital resources are then exchangeable to tokens. So this is the exchangeable tokenomics. Allotment tokenomics is especially useful for countering inflation. So for example, allotment tokenomics allows so that there's a fixed number of tokens that can be minted or exchanged for, whereas other tokenomics, it's based off of user action. So assuming there's 100 people playing our game right now, the total number of estimated token minting and the token volume is expected. Whereas all of a sudden, if that traffic increases to 10,000 users rather than 100, how will we deal with the inflation, right? Allotment tokenomics allows so that there's a fixed amount of tokens available so that if we have 100 people playing the game, then it would be divisible by 100. Whereas if that increases to 10,000, it would just simply be divisible by 10,000. And therefore, rather than inflation, we're now working with automatic deflation. Reward tokenomics is the third type of tokenomics. This is more for casual games, for example, where let's say if I were to play games like Candy Crush, I would complete individual levels and surpass a certain threshold and receive tokens as a reward. This is very simply laid out and especially designed for those casual games. Performance tokenomics is one of the newer ones. Performance tokenomics allows so that it's truly giving the potential of valuation of the tokens to the user base. And I'll tell you how. Performance tokenomics it doesn't follow a set of rules. So you're not exchanging in-game resources for specific tokens, but rather tokens are generated and more tokens or token volume is directly associated with how the economy plays out. So if the token initially is worth $1, and if it's based off of the value increase, which directly impacts the number of extra tokens to be minted, increasing the volume, then it's 100% based off of how the community interacts with the tokenomics, rather than setting certain set of rules, whereas we're dealing with inflation or deflation in that sense. Stable tokenomics is interesting as well. It's one of the newer ones. So if I were to give you an example, if I walk into a casino today, and if I exchange my dollars to chips available to play games within the casino, then let's say I chose to play some table games. I won $1,000, okay? So I want money. Now I go back to the cashier and I ask, hey, can I cash out? And all of a sudden, the value of my chips are said to be 50 cents instead of $1. Now, that doesn't make sense, does it? It doesn't make sense in real life. And for certain cases, in terms of how games are designed, the value must be steady and it must maintain the same value throughout, regardless of external implications. So those are the 5 types of categories available on the tokenomics. But these aren't the only ones. This is to help explain the different types of tokenomics. But every game has its unique in-game economics. And utilizing and understanding the uniqueness of each game, each tokenomics differs. So, for example, one of our recently developed and launched game in Korea on Wemix Play, it bases the tokenomics utilizing 2 different types of tokenomics. And utilizing these 2 different types of tokenomics interacting with each other, it creates an added value for the users. And it expands the experience cycle of the gamers. So virtually, there's no limit to what type of tokenomics you could create or adapt onto your game. Now, tokenomics allowing you to enable gamers to create their own value through gameplay is the first component that we just shared. Now, the second component is GameFi. GameFi is important because this is where we actually create utility for the tokens outside of tradability of the token as assets inside the game and outside of the game. So GameFi allows so that assets created and generated and owned by the users are now tradable. Not only tradable, they can use it for financial services on-chain. So it's very transparent, very secure, but at the same time, it allows them to participate in different services, granting them access to what we call life is game. So you're utilizing your assets that you earn from the game, and you're investing it now, rather than just cashing out. So this especially involves the expansion of the ecosystem, and it allows for gamers to participate more so in the services that can be added onto the ecosystem outside of the game. So in the future, we would have more services available on GameFi that would allow them to utilize the assets that they have to borrow NFTs, for example, or even use NFTs to borrow assets and et cetera. So this is where innovation takes place, GameFi. So right now on Wemix Play, some of the main services that we offer through GameFi is exchange. So we offer 2 different types of exchanges. So fully on-chain swap, which is basically a way of allowing asset A to be exchangeable for asset B or asset C automatically based on pre-coded smart contracts. So there's no third party involved. Developers are not involved. It's only the gamers that exchange asset to asset. Now, the second exchange is the order book. So it's basically the traditional order book where I would like to sell my assets for a certain price, and I would fill that order, and someone would decide to purchase my assets for that price. So exchangeability, it comes in handy, allowing for the basis of intergame economy. There's the lending and borrowing protocol available on Wemix Play. So this allows for me to earn an asset through gameplay, and I could choose to lend you those assets for a certain fee. So this is directly associated to traditional finance, but we call it GameFi because it has to deal with a lot of game components. Vice versa, I can also borrow certain assets without playing the games. So if I would like to invest into some of these solutions without playing the game, then I could just simply borrow it, utilizing other assets as collateral. There's also staking. Staking allows for yielding of profit, and this is very utilized in the blockchain space currently, not only in blockchain gaming, but also in DeFi. So these services will revolutionize the way gamers interact with the assets that they earn. So it's not about just simply earning, but also interacting with different services using those assets. The third component is marketplace. So this is where NFTs come in. So when we categorize and think about what Tokenomics stands for, these tokens are simple assets that can be tradable back in the game with resources, right? Whereas NFTs allow for absolute ownership of assets, but it also increases the type of assets, type of resources in game that they can create into assets. So for example, it's not just tokens, but as NFTs, I could mint a certain item within the game into assets that can be tradable. I can also mint characters that I have created and progressed through in-game experience. And through the marketplace, this allows gamers to really become involved in investment of the games that they play, whether it's money, whether it's time, whether it's effort, but also it allows for connection between different games. So, for example, I could utilize my NFT character from game A, and I can sell it on the marketplace in different ways. For example, like you see auction on the screen here. So I could choose. So if I deem to have an NFT character that's worth a lot, if I think it's worth a lot, then I would put it on auction. And through this functionality, I could have different people bid on my NFT. So this is creating that added value for the users and added experience for the users. Now, there's also the traditional drops, which is the initial minting of NFTs that you can purchase, but also airdrops in special events. So all of these solutions are there so that we can associate better as gamers in the blockchain space. But we're not talking about technology, right? Notice how we're only talking about services, not technology. So blockchain doesn't have to be solely based on technology or understanding of technology. Rather, it's more important to understand what the vision is behind it. And the vision comprised in these three components, as you can tell, is always and always will be based off of players' experience. The fourth and the final component is community. Now, I'm actually quite excited to share this because we have two different types of communities that are generated through our platform. And the first one is Papyrus. This is very interesting. So here we go. Papyrus is basically a token-gated community channel and platform. So what this does is, originally when we create or manage to generate a gaming community, let's say we gather people that have played or interested in playing MMORPGs, like WoW, for example. So we have an active community. Now, developers and publishers want to utilize this community, and they want to service a different title in the future. So let's say an FPS title. But we have people gathered because they want to play MMORPGs. How are you going to utilize this body of gamers and have them play an FPS now? They're not interested in FPS. Now, token gating allows it so that understanding the flow of the 4 components, the 3 before community, we've created assets using tokens, right? So these tokens can be used as an identifier to gather together communities of, or members of the gaming community, to gather them together organically who share the same vision and same interests without imposing specific rule sets or guidelines. So we're not implying, hey, you guys should come, we have a community, let's be active. It's not about that. It's about organically creating, hey, what do you want to play? What do you own? So it's essentially a way of giving them the choice to hear what they want to hear and also choose to listen to whoever they want to listen to. And I'll explain why. Because through token gating, if you enter into a certain channel within Papyrus, you will see all these people speaking within that same channel, and it will disclose the amount of tokens or number of assets that they own. So this works in tandem with understanding or acknowledging, hey, I want to listen to this person or what this person has to say because he or she owns a huge volume of the tokens that I'm interested in, right? So this is a revolutionizing technology and platform that reinforces the ideas that developers had in the past, but never realized. So it's now being realized through blockchain technology. One other important aspect of Papyrus is identification is one thing, but we're always so sensitive of personal information. Now, personal information and sharing of personal information has always been critical. So by critical, I mean no one touches that subject because no one wants to share their personal information. So the good thing about Papyrus is we don't need to utilize personal information. The identifying factor is based off of their assets that they own and that they bring into the community. So the aggregation model of this blockchain-based community allows clear and transparent gathering of community members within the gaming space, sharing the same interest and same goal. And that is quite interesting. Now, the second is fan token. Fan token actually utilizes one of the aforementioned types of tokenomics. This is the performance-based tokenomics. So fan token utilizes a formulation method based off of high watermark and also time-weighted average. So what that means is, let's say initially there are a set number of tokens that are minted and available for purchase. Now, the fans and the community engages together, and if the value of the fan token increases because there's more demand by the fan base, then that directly implies the next set of extra tokens to be minted in the vault. So what that means is the control is handed over to the community, so to the fans and the community, the creator, rather than setting up certain guidelines or set of rules that the tokenomics follows. So this is a real-life example of how we incorporated technology through innovation and creating value and giving back to the community. So right now we have a session scheduled tomorrow, I believe, by a creator that launched the fan token with us several months back. So if you have time, you should definitely look into that session. But fan tokens are an amazing way of, again, working to create that healthy environment where the community is created and managed on the blockchain network. So the transformation takes these 4 components and making sure that the game is good, first and foremost. But if the game is good, then we're adding value proposition through these 4 components. So what we're doing at Wemix Play is we're not just building games. We're not just publishing games. And we're not just here and sharing some speculative ideas of like how blockchain technology will change and reestablish the gaming industry in the future. No. What we're doing is we're going through this month by month, day by day. We're experiencing and experimenting with different services and different solutions. And today, we're here at GDC. And we're sharing our insight and what we have learned through our experience. And that experience comes into form in these 4 categories. And these 4 components is all you need to bring your game and transform that game into a blockchain game. So what we want to do essentially is we want game developers to develop games and not worry about new technology, especially blockchain. We'll handle that. No, all you need to do is develop and bring us your great game. And what we'll do with that game is we'll make it better. We'll make it so that it provides added value to the user base. So that completes my presentation for the session. So recapping, we wanted to simplify the overall process and the understanding and acknowledgement of what blockchain gaming is, and also share our insight on how we transform games from Web 2, the traditional games, into blockchain games. It's not difficult, right? It's not difficult at all, but it's been very difficult for us from our experience. But that experience works as an advantage for us to innovate the gaming space through blockchain technology. So thank you for your time today. And we would love to meet with you. If you're a developer or gamer, just come talk to us. We have a huge booth in the main hall. You'll see us as soon as you get off the escalator. So come talk to us. Learn more about how these 4 components work. We have set up our booth associated with these 4 components, so feel free to come ask. I know that we have some time remaining, so if there's any questions, I would love to answer them right away. Sure, yes?
Hello, my name is Andrei. I work for Xsolla, and actually we also have conversation with developers, Web 2, Web 3, and actually when we ask our Web 2 partners what stopped you to move into direction of Web 3, the most common answer is that, blockchain, Web 3 is quite toxic theme today, actually. I'm curious from your perspective what industry should do in order to, get rid of this toxic negative perception of Web3 among not developers, but among gamers.
Thank you for the question. I would definitely say first of all, mass adoption is necessary, and it never happens just in a single step, to be honest. So the toxicity and also the perception of the public and the industry as a whole in terms of blockchain gaming is not too positive at this time. And the reason is because it's in the process of development and implementation of and experimentation of different technology and different services utilizing blockchain. But this is exactly in line with what we're trying to accomplish. So Wemix Play, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it so that things make sense. You know, we're not trying to introduce new technology to you, saying, "Hey, you got to do this. This is amazing." Right? And you may not agree with me, but it's still amazing. No, that's not what I'm doing. We need to really communicate with the traditional industry leaders and share with them, hey, there's no risk involved. It's not what you think. This is value addition. This is just extra. You know, you don't need to create from scratch. You don't need to consider yourself with smart contracts and protocols and networks and distribution. No, it's just create the games as you've created so far. That's what we're trying to accomplish. So I think, to answer your question, I think it's pivotal that we adapt this kind of ideology to the industry one by one. And that's what we're trying to accomplish through our presence at GDC. We've been here last year as well, but this year we're trying to do that more aggressively because we have experience to share, right? So yeah, I think, does that answer your question? All right, great. Any other questions? No? Okay.
Hi, this is Clarence Kim. I actually joined this event to help the WEMADE event, but as in my experience with the Garena for 4.5 years as a publisher and also with the EA Games as a servicing team as well, I have a question about this, the platform you just presented. So the services you're currently presenting, is it about, like, let's say the developer bring the good games, then you will be adding on the other values on your platform? If that's the case, was there any kind of obstacles merging your current ecosystem into the game that developed and provided already?
Well, we've definitely had our set of obstacles in the past, and that's also part of what we wanted to share. But frankly speaking, we've surpassed those limitations and obstacles in place, and that's why we're here today, and that's why we've shared such successful KPIs, right, through my slides. Understanding the current status of how games become onboarded on Wemix Play, there are no set of obstacles that I would like to present at this time because I think we've resolved it quite a bit. So although there may be in the future other obstacles that do come up, as of current, games can simply come and we provide an SDK as well as consulting on each of the 4 components that I've shared today to help developers create the perfect solution in those 4 aspects that create a better experience for the gamer base.
Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? No? All right. I believe we have about 20 minutes left, but if there's no questions, feel free to come visit us at our booth. We have our sourcing team there as well, so if you have questions as a developer, just feel free to come shoot us some questions. All right. Thank you so much. Have a great day.